Welcome back to Bahamas at Sunrise. Well, you know it is the month of February, and all month we've been talking to you about your heart health. We're taking this heart thing very seriously on Bahamas at Sunrise because, of course, your heart is what is keeping you going, and we want it to sustain you long term, which means you've got to take your health seriously. And here to talk to us about that this morning, we're very happy to have cardiologist Dr. Conville Brown. Good morning and welcome to Bahamas at Sunrise.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you, Dr. Brown. You certainly made a name for yourself as the man to see about hearts and making sure that they are continuing to keep going as best they can. How much of a problem is heart disease in our adult population here in the Bahamas?
Heart disease in the Bahamas. Well, first of all, thank you for having me back. This has been a pretty long journey here. I've been on one of your first shows way back, but let's not date ourselves. But when it comes to, and the message today is the same as the message was, unfortunately, 20 years ago, which is that heart disease is one of the biggest problems that we have in this country. Cardiovascular disease, even worse, meaning that even when you go outside of the heart, into the problems with the blood vessels and the rest of the body, be it in the brain with strokes, be it in the kidney with kidney failure, be it in the legs with loss of limbs, and so on. It's the most massive problem that we have as far as chronic non-communicable diseases are concerned, causes of death and causes of morbidity or disability. So heart disease is up there as number one, both in men and in women.
Wow. See, until you phrased it that way, I never made the connection between those valves and the loss of limbs that we often see in streets, etc. Those valves and things like stroke. You know, I didn't connect it, but when you said it just now, I brought it all together and really made this a critical issue because we see people with kidney problems, we see people that have strokes. We don't always connect it to the fact that they're not taking good care of their hearts.
Or they're not taking good care of themselves, and the heart happens to be one of the beneficiaries of that bad care, if you want to put it that way, and in so doing, we end up losing lots of life, limb, and ability.
Wow. So what are some of the causes of cardiovascular disease generally? What are some of the symptoms or the things that lead us down this negative path?
Well, you know, let's look at it in two ways. You have heart disease that can be congenital, meaning that the child can be born with a particular problem, whether it's a hole in the heart, whether one of the vessels has been switched, the heart has not developed properly. And I'm sure you would have had discussions about that with our pediatric cardiology colleagues, our cardiologists that take care of children. And then, of course, you have heart disease in adults, which for the most part, there can be a congenital element, but that's really in the minority. The biggest part of heart disease is that which we acquire through our lifestyle. And obviously through unhealthy lifestyle patterns that a lot of us indulge in, unfortunately. So where we have poor diets, high fat, high cholesterol, where we are not active, not enough exercise, generally overweight. The Bahamas is one of the most overweight and obese countries in the world. I mean, there was something I saw the other day with the top 10 countries, and we were ranked in the top 10. Now, this is not where we want to be, but unfortunately, we just completed an FDA clinical trial that's in the process of closing now that showed where I actually had to give a report to the global community on this, and realized that Mexico was ahead of us as a country, number one, and the Bahamas and the Caribbean in the number 2 slot, with 70 versus 71% overweight and obesity. That is a challenge. And of course, this leads to a number of other, a number of other illnesses, including the development of hypertension, the development of diabetes mellitus. It's associated with high cholesterol, all of the things that don't do anything good for you, but will promote blocking your vessels with cholesterol deposits, and of course you can then lead on to develop angina, chest pain, and we can talk about the symptoms in a second, but all of these things that can shorten your life.
Wow. I mean, and just the thing that it's so common for us to just eat so poorly, like that's just a part of our quote-unquote culture.
It's easy to do. Some people say it's less expensive to do so. I think a lot of it really is that we're just not adequately educated, so that if we can make the choices, and if we're in a position to make the choices, at least let's make the better choice. But if we just blame it on it's less expensive to eat poorly and don't educate ourselves, we'll never get out of this vicious cycle.
Yeah, well, a part of this education, of course, is happening today. And so one of the things I'd like you to talk to our viewers about are the symptoms that you might experience if you are going into what could be a heart attack or a major heart health challenge. Talk to us about that.
Sure. There are a number of things. Remember, the heart is the pump or the engine for the car, so to say. So the heart is the pump that pumps all of the blood around the body so that all of our organs can actually survive, function, and be able to maintain themselves. If you affect the fuel lines, which is where your cholesterol deposits come in, they tend to block up the arteries that supply the heart with blood, and the heart itself needs to supply the rest of the body with blood, then the engine itself becomes compromised. And if it does, then you don't get to feed everybody else, and so they then tend to have subsequent malfunction. So in terms of the heart sputtering or not working very well, there are a number of symptoms that can be associated with that. Number one is we ourselves won't have enough energy. So getting tired easily, getting short of breath because you just run out of gas, so to say. So shortness of breath, or what we actually call dyspnea, which really means a sensation of difficulty breathing, is one of the cardinal signs of coronary artery disease, which again is the development of these plaques, cholesterol plaques in the blood vessels that supply the heart with blood. But the most primary symptom is that of chest pain. And again, I want to make a distinction. Let's not just talk about chest pain. Let's speak more about chest discomfort, because it may not hurt. It may just be uncomfortable. So you may have chest tightness, heaviness, squeezing, a pressure in your chest, and it's not unusual for the doctor to say, so Anastasia, any chest pain? And you say no. And on the way out the door, you say, but you know, tell me, doc, what about that tightness in my chest?
Right, which is different.
Which is different from pain, but it's one of the more common symptoms that you can get from blockages in the blood vessels. So it has the exact same meaning. So we need to understand that you can have chest discomfort that goes anywhere from a little tingling, numbness, tightness, heaviness, or pressure in the chest, all the way to the most severe chest pain that you could feel in the world. And of course, let me take it one more step. You can actually have no discomfort whatsoever.
Wow.
And so people can have what's called silent heart attacks. Wow. So that's really a problem. And then, of course, sweating, diaphoresis, we call that, where you have excessive sweating associated with chest discomfort, nausea and vomiting. I mean, there are a number of symptoms that we need to be aware of, educate ourselves. So when they happen, particularly what I call in bad company. So in other words, if you walk up a flight of stairs and you feel like you're having gas in your chest, don't just call it gas. Wrong company. So that ought to then be investigated. If you're sitting down, you know you had something you don't normally like to eat, or you eat something that you feel didn't agree with you, and you start to have quote-unquote gas, I don't think you need to run to the emergency room. But if you break out in a sweat with it, and you have the vomiting, and you have chest discomfort, and it goes down your arm, left arm or right arm, back or front, that's bad company, and you need to really get that looked into immediately, if not sooner.
I like the way that you put that all together for us. Dr. Brown, of course, our time is too short as always, unfortunately. But before you go, the Bahamas Heart Center is having a Heart Health Awareness Day next week, Tuesday, the 20th, from I think 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And there you will be doing special screenings. Talk to me about the types of screenings that will be happening so that people can prepare themselves to take better care of their hearts.
Sure. Well, one of the things that they want to do is one of the drives in recent times has been this Go Red for Women drive. And I'm actually on the International Business Committee for the American Heart Association. So this is one of the big initiatives that we're promoting globally now, not just within the United States of America. And it's really to point out that women have heart disease just as much as or more than men. Because months ago it was felt that women really didn't have a lot of heart disease, they just caused it. Now, not serious about the last part. But so in a part of the Go Red for Women drive is to make sure that people actually know their numbers, know the things that matter to you with respect to your health. And of course, knowing your cholesterol, knowing your weight, your body mass index, which is calculated from your weight and your height, because most of us are not considered overweight. We're considered short for our weight. You know, so we always find a way around this. But of course, so height, weight, and blood pressure. Height and weight will give us our body mass index, which is too high for most of us in the Bahamas. Our glucose level will let us know if we have diabetes mellitus or if we're tending towards it. The cholesterol levels, you'd like to know the good and the bad about the two of those, because not all cholesterol is bad. So we'll be doing free screening for people between those hours on Tuesday of next week to give people a better idea and encourage them to look at themselves and what they are comprised of so that they can determine their risk. So that's a big part towards educating the community as well, and we encourage people to come by and participate.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Brown. I'm looking forward to having you again, and we hope that it goes well, that people will come out and get that information that is necessary to prevent heart disease.
And it's for free.
It's free. You can't beat that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
And thank you. You're watching Bahamas at Sunrise. We'll be right back.